people stop moving or they leave, in which case, in theory, you bring people in at a lower rate.
And before we put the grid in place, they weren't moving, they'd already reached the max?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, was that
yeah,
more out?
average of 14 years, some people.
But having said that,
They still stay here, I know.
no, yeah, it's that wasn't where I was
Well,
going.
that's because we have such wonderful leadership
Having
in
said
FinCom
that,
to help support them.
We're talking about the smallest part of those four groups. You know, the step and grid that we're talking about here
The
is.
conversation isn't about that. The
Right.
conversation- That's the, just using the concept, and we
Yeah.
happen to be talking about that group.
So
It's a bigger issue.
the schools use a step and grid as well.
Yeah.
So it's not the
And they have
non-union,
levels
it is
on
all
top of
four
it.
of those constituencies and having, which, you know, I'm eager to go find the other numbers and play with this. It's gonna be something similar though. We inherently, you know it's gonna be,
Every town has the
you know,
same
something
issue.
3.5% to 5%, somewhere in there, I'm betting, I don't know, but I'm betting that school teachers are gonna be in that.
Once
Range as
upon
well.
a time, the schools, the estimate was just paying steps and levels would be 4% on the salaries. Whether it's still the same now, I don't know, but it was considering who could move, who couldn't move, it was 4%. That's what you estimated, and then you put whatever negotiated increase on top of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 6, I mean, there were some people getting 7%
Mhm.
or more.
More.
Now,
If you got a 7% step plus a 2% COLA,
now on the flip side, there is one other thing to think about, which is just in most of our industries, there are promotions. You know, and there are fewer of them as you move up the ladder, but as a teacher, unless you change out of teaching,
Or get a degree.
you'll get a degree, you know, you get a degree which gives you part of that step, but, you know, there isn't that opportunity for you to increase your
Right.
compensation.
And any
I can
more-
go and chase after my boss's job,
same for
Right.
town hall.
Yeah.
Not too many places to
you
go.
know, so, I mean, so I'm curious what that does on the private sector for the net, what salary ranges, because I know I'm only getting what I got this past year, and I know what you got now.
What do you get, 6?
Yeah, one.
Because you're skiing too much.
But there's
But
promotional opportunities, perhaps more so than in a small closed environment.
Right,
Yeah.
so, you know, I
And
don't,
that was my point earlier, it's hard to compare.
yeah, apples to
It's
oranges,
hard.
but the 3.9 is something that stands out.
But again, I think you have to choose your time range wisely. And
You're right, your
even-
starting
even
point, your
project-
starting point matters.
Even project forward
Based on that
on,
model.
you know, there's a bunch of people at step 7 or 8.
Mhm.
Well, okay, a couple more years and the conversation is very different.
So maybe that's where our energy would be better spent, is to do a
Forecast.
projection, a forecast, as opposed to doing a study.
Yeah, well, that's a, well, just,
No,
Is
it's a
that-
part,
is
it's
that
a part
from
of
this
it,
point
but
of,
Yeah,
I'm not tweaking anything
Yeah.
until I have a consultant tell me this is how we can do it.
I'm not talking about tweaking, I'm saying forecasting based on the existing staff.
have
and
that.
the existing model.
I have it
So how far out does that go?
for 5 years. What I'm saying is that that's not enough to make,
that's not
Changes to the
necessarily
grid.
with all the real people, right?
using this year's numbers and,
Okay, but I'm
Based
not,
on
I'm not
staff.
sure you tracked individuals and found them topped out and stopped increasing
no,
their
I mean,
salary.
that could be the next level of analysis, but
That's-
even
that's what it's
so,
supposed to
even
be.
so, we find out, okay, let's say we're underpaying people or overpaying people, now what do we do?
No, we're not saying.
No,
we're not
That's
talking
what
about
I'm trying to get
We're not trying
to,
to
We're not
get
talking
How
about
do
under payroll
fix
pay.
it?
You're missing where he's coming
Yeah.
from, he's just trying to understand, like, going forward, are we gonna be sitting here over the next 5 years having a 3.9% increase discussion?
When does
or
that
a
flatten?
2.5, or a
If
5%?
everybody stays, when does that flatten out?
It would give us a view from a forecasting on a budget perspective, is what you're getting at.
If everybody
Yeah.
stays, I'm guessing in 4 years.
Yeah,
Assuming everyone's paid fairly and
Well,
just established.
yeah.
Well, but that's an important, so I'm saying it's unsustainable. If this thing flattens out in 4 years, that sustainability issue goes away. That's
Right.
with all those
Yeah.
assumptions.
Well,
Or it gets.
but, or a study comes and
Or-
says, okay, we need to
or the
raise that.
offset is new growth.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we're dealing with, we're struggling with now is we've dried out of new growth. So we have nothing, we can't assume that salaries are gonna go down, because once they go down, we know what happened the last time. We got priced out of the market, and then we had to readjust. So we're still feeling this new system, and it's intentionally made so that people can progress through their career path.
Yeah.
But if we had new growth, this is less of a,
We're not gonna have any growth.
Right.
We're not.
well, no, not enough to, well then,
I mean,
tell me what services we should cut, and then that's probably the only way
Well, that's great.
we'll
Right.
deal with it,
Yeah.
right?
Or, you know,
Yeah.
people just have to be willing to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why Prop 2.5 is the way it is. I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because there is that option.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen if we did a
There's no
override and it didn't
simple-
pass? I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
we've had that.
Okay,
What's that?
yeah,
If an override doesn't pass, the
yeah, an operating override doesn't pass, what do you do?
Yeah.
school's cut,
Okay.
cut,
You lay people off.
well, or.
Did it-
they-
Class size, well, but ultimately, whether it's not
Yeah.
filling positions or not, doing something, ultimately 80% of your budget's people.
Yeah.
86.
Anyhow,
anywho,
Yeah.
So I'd like, I'd try and find the elementary and.
yeah, and look, because in the omnibus, I think most people are noted what step they're at.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's where I pulled this off of, was
Yeah.
the elementary.
Yeah, and so you.
But unfortunately, again, that's still not the schools, which are.
Right,
part-
no, the
Well,
schools,
So I
yeah,
can give you the model, and run those, and run the comparisons
Yeah.
of that stuff, and nothing's, the benefits aren't allocated, allocated.
yeah, no, the school grid is, I don't know where to find it,
I can send it to you.
but it's
I have it.
negotiated, and if Kelly has it.
Yeah. I guess the
The
bottom
elementary
line
one
is,
is
so we get this
that.
data, what do we do with it? That's what I'm wondering. So to have something productive come out of this conversation would be, okay, we've acknowledged that there's an issue with sustainability, what do we do next?
Yeah.
Right? So rather than bring it up and get everybody all uptight, let's come up with some constructive way to take it a step further.
Well,
And
I
I'm
think
just
the
letting
first,
you
I think the
know.
first one is
Forecast it out.
to forecast it out.
Well, I can give you that tomorrow. What does that change with this process is what I'm wondering.
Well, it tells us what the problem is.
But how do we, so this year, what are we gonna do to resolve
It's
it?
not, it's not a this year
No,
problem.
no,
This
it's-
conversation is not a this year issue.
This is
This
a
is-
3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, this year, next year,
And the next
15
10
years out, probably,
Right.
not,
That's fine.
Right.
not,
And it's knowing when you're going to say, okay, we've got all the great employees and they're staying with us and they've topped out and all they're getting is a cost of living adjustment.
Mhm.
And so that changes the rate of increase
Mhm.
until somebody leaves, but then that,
Right.
At least you're
Person who's
armed with
left.
that knowledge when we're having these budget
You
conversations.
you look at
Yeah,
some of the
I mean-
great corporations like GM and, Ford, they all went broke because they had these union salaries and benefits.
Yeah.
And the benefits and salaries just outstripped their ability to support them. Some of these companies are paying more in like Massachusetts.
Yeah.
You know, the state workers, they're paying MBTA.
Yeah.
They're paying more to retirees than they're paying to, I don't know if that's exactly true, but they're paying a ton of money to retirees so they can't afford to maintain the system. And that's what you wanna look at is, when does this thing come to a point where it's not sustainable and you gotta change, you gotta tear the whole thing down to make it work. And
or
that's why
when,
GM took money.
or when you get to the
This year.
point where it is sustainable,
Right.
if,
Right, and that's
Right.
why
if
you
you
do the
keep your
forecast to say,
employees.
oh, we can see a path where this thing starts to repair itself.
Yeah.
Or we say it never happens.
Yep.
And
I
at
think
some
it's gonna
point,
happen.
pardon me?
I don't think it will happen until we have new growth that outpaces our ability to pay
So we're not gonna have
employees.
that, so what are we gonna do?
So it will happen one way or the other,
Part-
So we're
2.5, or we hire, we cut
Or-
services.
yeah,
We
or,
cut services and we
Okay.
cut hours.
So, I mean, that's the discussion we gotta start having is, what services?
And
Really, really
that's not what we
non-essential.
wanna do.
No.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
I
that's
don't wanna-
fine, yeah.
We had that discussion when the economy tanked,
Right,
and we coped.
yeah.
But we gradually restored those services because nobody was happy with how it worked.
Okay.
but there is a cliff ahead of us. At this rate, there is a cliff ahead of us. And so, now maybe someone will build a bridge,
The Emerson
Over
Center,
the
the Emerson
bridge,
Center could go someplace.
or maybe we gotta adjust it, but
But
Yeah,
maybe
we
we'll
need to do-
regionalize fire departments, maybe we'll regionalize police
Police
departments,
department.
because we have
have
to.
to, yeah.
And then we don't have to, so nobody's
Health,
pushing too hard for that.
health insurance goes to single payer, I'm not saying it will, I'm not, but,
Yeah.
or health insurance goes the other way and.
I knew you were growing that beard purple.
Hey, I'm saying, right?
Perspective-wise, aside from the economy tanking, we always manage to cope.
Yeah. But it gets thinner and thinner each year, a little bit thinner.
Well, we've been bailed out with good free cash numbers in the past 2 years. Not
Well,
bailed out,
and,
but it's helped.
and decreases were larger, less,
And debt was coming off.
smaller increases than we were afraid of in the health
Mhm.
insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're in a bad spot. Years and years ago, it was called the doom and gloom meeting, the budget guidelines, where, you know, the projection was, oh, well, we're $200,000 over guidelines. This year, we're gonna be $1.5 million over the levy
Yeah.
limit in 3 years, and it just wasn't true.
What are you gonna do when you don't put your 1 to 3% reinvestment back into real estate assets?
Yeah.
And they, you know, we can put off all the maintenance and all the repairs, preventive maintenance, and someday it's gonna come home to roost. and have to
Well,
replace
it
me.
came on the roost this last couple of years with some of these major projects we just
Oh,
had.
yeah, I mean, when you're bonding, painting the walls of the schools.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we put roofs on and we put air conditioners on.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of other equipment.
Right.
Masco's got that $30 million, $35 million number they've got hanging out there right now. So,
How much
yeah,
should go
it's
up
going
that
up.
number?
Hey, did I tell you guys our health insurance is going down? It's like unheard of.
I know.
Maybe as much as 7%. Isn't that miraculous?
That will help us this year.
Isn't that
That
fabulous?
will help us.
And, oh, by the way, have you heard AAA?
That's right.
Yeah.
Can't let this meeting end on a bad note.
No, it's not a bad no.
No, the conversation is 10:30 at night, it's still good,
Kept us awake.
yeah.
You
Might
feel
keep
better?
you awake all night.
I've been up to
I
like.
do, because I'm hearing people agreeing that we should be looking out
Yeah.
into the future,
Yeah.
not this week, this month, this year, next year, but 5 to 10 years. You know, how do we start forecasting what's going to
I'm
happen
just
in the
trying to get
future?
the forward-looking view of the world.
And act, because we can change things 2 or 3 or 4 years out. We can't change things this year.
No, the problem is negotiations are already underway, the funding, you know, resource, tax revenue is what it is. This year is this year.
And the salaries may not even be the solution, that may not be what
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
well,
I suspect the non-represented salaries.
Oh,
We've looked and said, oh, yeah, you know, 1% is what, $25,000?
Yeah.
So don't feel special,
Right,
because
that's
I'm,
moving the needle.
But I think
I sit on a chair of law enforcement committee for the Federal Reserve.
Yeah,
Every single year, we get a new first vice president that chairs the first vice president committee,
yeah,
and they want to know how we're going to reduce costs and staffing in law enforcement.
yeah.
Every year, it's the same
Yeah.
question. The answer's the same, but the question goes back.